All right. Hey, Brendan, how's it going?
Good, Mike. How are you today?
All right. So today we're going to get into a topic, which is an interesting one. It's how to rank in cities where you serve customers. And specifically, we're gonna talk a bit about this as it affects a business which is, maybe headquartered in a major city. And of course, they want to rank in that major city, but they also, maybe they have a 60-mile radius for serving their customers. So they want to be able to rank and come up in all those cities surrounding that. So I think there are right ways to do this and wrong ways to do it. And we're going to discuss some strategies on how to do it.
Yeah, I think Mike, and this is, I know when we make these videos because we're SEO guys, we know the right length of these videos and we try to keep them short, but this is one that might be a little longer just because it's a more difficult topic. I think it's a little bit more advanced. It's probably more advanced than what a business owner should honestly be doing on their own without consulting an expert first, but we'll do our best to give some guidance on it. I always give Mike the old example of Best Buy, and I say you go to the Best Buy website and they've got a page for every single one of their locations. Whether they have one location in Chicago or 100 or one location in Portland or 100, they got one for every location. And they do that obviously so you can find out information specific to that location. And so that's kind of one of the first criteria that we look at when it comes to, hey, should we create a city specific page for our business? Let's say we're a AC contractor in Miami. Should we have a page in Fort Lauderdale and Hollywood, Florida, and Cape Coral and Coral Gables and all these surrounding areas? Or should we just have one, really good page about being a Miami AC contractor? And back to that Best Buy example, some of the criteria that we look at is, hey, is there something specific that you do for that community, right? So in the Best Buy example, maybe the certain Best Buy has a Geek Squad and the other one doesn't. Maybe they do car audio installations, the other one doesn't. Maybe they do home theater stuff, the other one doesn't. So they're listing on their location page, the specific services they offer to that community through that one location. They're listing their address, they're listing their hours of operation, they're listing pertinent information that is more than just SEO fluff, we'll call it, right? They're not just creating a page for the purpose merely of SEO. They actually have important information to convey about that location. So that's kind of one of the first criteria that we look at. So if we take it into the real world and we say, hey, I'm a Miami AC contractor, should I have a page in all these different communities? Well, maybe there's something different you do in those communities. Maybe you have 24-hour service in one community and not the other. Maybe you don't do a particular type of AC in one area due to the building codes and you do in another. So if the first barrier, Mike, is if you can figure out something unique to those communities, then I think it makes sense to have a page for that city.
Yeah, so I just want to stop you 1 second. So we're talking about two different things because Best Buy actually does have physical locations.
Correct.
In multiple cities. And of course, they might serve smaller communities around those cities. But the AC contractor that we're talking about, they only have one office.
Correct.
And that's really who we want to target with this video is the service companies, whether it be a dentist in Tampa, Florida, who services all the 30-mile radius around Tampa.
Yep. So honestly, Mike, regardless of if you have a location, it's a little bit more cut and dry, right? You should almost always have a page for that location. That's kind of black and white. I think what I'm trying to explain though is making the point of the AC contractor. His scenario actually is pretty black and white as well, because if you can create a reason for having those pages, maybe you have special offers to different communities, maybe one city has an older population and you speak to them differently. So if you can create offers, information, services, really content that's unique to that city, I think it makes sense to have that page. Now, where we get into this gray kind of weird area of what Google kind of calls doorway pages is what they used to call all of these. They're kind of starting to differentiate between what is a doorway page and what isn't. But essentially, a doorway page is a page that you build on your website to act as a doorway, to act as an entry point where you're funneling traffic in for the sole purpose of that page existing to rank on Google. So if it wasn't for the fact that you wanted this page to rank well, you probably would never go through the effort of creating that page. That's basically what a doorway page is in layman terms. So back to the AC contractor, again, his pages technically aren't doorway pages if we're saying, hey, in Fort Lauderdale, we don't have 24-hour service, but we do in Miami. Or we're saying, hey, in Hollywood, we offer these 3 manufacturer rebate programs because the city of Hollywood offers X, Y, and Z rebates. So if you can find some unique reason, regardless of whether or not you have a physical location there, to have that page exist beyond just trying to trick Google into ranking a page, then I think you're in a pretty black and white area to create that page. Now, taking that a step further, Mike, back into this weird gray area. So let's say you're an AC contractor and you're like, hey, I don't have anything unique about this city. Should I create a city page now? And that's where it becomes a little bit trickier. So the SEO guy in me says maybe. And what it really comes down to is it depends on how Google is treating the other pages on your website. It depends on how fierce your competition is in that area. So if there's only one other AC guy in that city, you might rank well just having a page for an adjacent city that you actually need to have for, common sense, logical purposes, right? So there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Hold up 1 second.
Yep.
Okay, so let's back up. So I like to teach by using examples.
Yep.
So let's talk about specific search terms. So let's say we're saying like, just AC repair, very broad, simple term. And we're saying, go to Google and look for AC repair in Miami. How would you then take a look at just that one search term from a results standpoint and say, okay, we should or should not create a page for Miami and then a separate page for, Fort Lauderdale as an example, which is what.
Yeah. So what you just named, again, and this is where it gets tricky, Mike, because there's like 100 different things that go through an SEO guy's mind when it comes to that. So there's not a one size fits all. So in that specific example, here's what's going through my mind. I'm thinking to myself, hey, Miami and Fort Lauderdale, both very big cities. They're both in the same kind of geographical region, but if you ask anybody that lives there, they're like night and day differences, right? So in that scenario, just those things alone in my head is like, okay, there should be 2 pages for those. Now, if I did some more research and if I went and Googled those, I would find that Google is probably showing very different businesses in Miami versus Fort Lauderdale. I would find that there's probably pretty fierce competition in both of those places. So I would say, hey, if I'm in Miami and if I want any chance in ranking in Fort Lauderdale, I have to have a page there. So now I'm thinking to myself, hey, how do I create that page without it being spammy? So how do I actually
before you get to the content, it sounds like what you're saying is that if I Google AC repair Miami and I look at the first page of search results, and then I Google AC repair Fort Lauderdale and I look at the first page, if those two search results are dramatically different, showing a whole bunch of different companies, then the answer is yes, create 2 different pages. But if they're similar, maybe not.
If they're similar, maybe not. So then if they're, let's say that they were similar, in that case, Mike, I'm taking a look and I'm seeing, all right, who's actually ranking? Why are they ranking? Are there people? And this is where you can kind of let somebody that's done SEO before, kind of be your experiment and learn from it. You can say, hey, if Johnny's AC repair has a page and it says, I'm the best Miami and Fort Lauderdale AC guy, and that page is ranking for both, well then, hey, why can't we rank our page for both, right? So you kind of take a look and you see what Google likes and what they're doing. And that's what helps guide you as to whether or not you need a page or whether or not you could have just one page that covers multiple different cities.
So you really do need to kind of dig down, look at the search results and sort of guess or analyze, what Googlebot is doing.
You do, Mike, and what makes that, and this is why I said in the beginning of this is kind of an advanced topic, is because every single case of it is different. And I've been doing this for 15 years. You've been doing it for almost as long, I think, or longer. And it's hard because what we just described in Miami, we might go into Colorado and look at like Denver, and Google might treat that, even though it's a very similar market, similar size cities, similar makeup. It might treat Denver and Colorado Springs or Denver and some other adjacent city totally different than how they're treating Miami and Fort Lauderdale. And the strategy might be different because of that. So it's really kind of hard on this particular topic to have a one size fits all approach to it. But essentially what you want to do, the biggest takeaway is that you never want to create these location pages to make them look like doorway pages, because that's going to get you in hot water with Google. And there's a whole host, Mike, of other issues. We could talk about this topic for days because, sometimes we create doorway pages or we create these location pages and then all of a sudden the wrong page ranks, or, you have adjacent cities that are similar and we create too many location pages and, all of a sudden now the Hollywood, Florida page is ranking in Fort Lauderdale. So there's a lot of really advanced issues that can come up with regards to this topic. But, first and foremost, like I said, is if you can create, for a business owner, if you can create purpose to having that page, through your service explanations, through what you're offering there, your products, your level of service, if you can figure out some differentiator, then more times than not, I would say you're better off creating that location page and having different pages for different locations to kind of explain that. And then you have different bites of the apple. Some of the other issues, Mike, we could talk about, and I don't want to get too off topic here, but a whole separate topic on this issue is a lot of businesses actually sometimes open locations just for the purpose of ranking there, right? So that they can have 2 bites at the Google listing, so that they can have another address to use. And that's something that we've helped clients with as well. Sometimes it's worth it for them financially to, they might have a headquarters in Miami and they might open up a small office in Fort Lauderdale just for the sake of, driving traffic, having somewhere to meet with their clients and getting more business in that area.
Yeah, so that's bringing up a whole other can of worms.
Whole other can of worms.
Maybe what we do is let's get back to where I cut you off before. You were going to start talking about, I think, content differentiation. I remember one time I asked you about, 2 similar sort of keywords. Should I target this keyword and that keyword? And I think you gave me some pretty sage advice. You said, well, if you can write 1,000 words of unique content about this one, and those 2 pages are different, then absolutely have 2 pages. If you can't do that, then you should have 1 page. So now we're talking about AC repair Miami versus AC repair Fort Lauderdale. We've done the research. We've determined that the results are different and we should have a different page for each one. So how do I go about creating a page that's really unique for the Fort Lauderdale city as opposed to Miami?
Yeah, that's the hard part. And again, that goes back to figuring out, if you should have that page in the first place, how do I make this not be a doorway page? How do I actually make this into a value offering page? So maybe you have a different phone number in that market with a different area code. You need to provide that and you explain what phone number is which. You maybe start there. Maybe you have different operating hours in that area. You explain that to people. Maybe, like I said earlier, you offer 24-hour emergency service in one area, but not the other. So you try to find common sense things that you can talk about first and foremost. Then you kind of move on to what's different in this market. Is it some areas are, like in Los Angeles, for example, you could be on the coast of LA versus going inland and there's a 30-degree temperature variant, right? So is there something geographically different about that area where you can talk about, hey, we have a need for heating and cooling versus just cooling, or vice versa? So, look at what are the differences in terms of the physical city that you're in, and try to find things that you can write about and share that actually provide value and make sense in that area, to go onto that page. Now, where it gets even more difficult, Mike, is, so far we've just been talking about 2 different cities and one specific service being AC repair. Where it gets more complicated is most of our SEO campaigns, we have dozens or hundreds of keywords, right? So we're going to have Miami AC repair. We're going to have Miami AC maintenance. We're going to have Miami new AC installations. We're going to have all these different keywords for Miami. What do you then do in Fort Lauderdale? Do you have all 10 or 20 keywords that you have in Miami and Fort Lauderdale? And then do you create 10 or 20 pages there? So that's where it gets kind of difficult. And that's where you have to really dig your heels in and do that research on a keyword by keyword basis, because, the way that Google treats AC repair might be different from how they treat new AC installations based on the search volume.
Yeah, it's really, really tricky because you can see as you multiply all those terms and the cities together, you wind up with hundreds or thousands of options.
Exactly. And we're talking about 2 cities. There's potentially, we have clients that we're doing 30, 40, 50 cities for across 15 different service offerings. So you do the math on that, 50 times 15. Now you've got a ton of keywords and a ton of pages.
Yeah. So I guess if you want to rank in these different cities, you really have to dig in, do the research, talk to us, try to figure out a strategy. And what happens if the strategy fails? Like you go and you create the content, you made your best efforts, but you're still not ranking. Then what?
Yeah, Mike, nothing in the SEO world is bulletproof. So there are times that even the experts get it wrong. It's rare. To be honest with you, Mike, I'm digging in my old brain here. I'm trying to think of the last time that we created a strategy that totally failed. And I can't think of when. We have pages sometimes where we're like, hey, this one page, just whatever we do to it, it doesn't want to rank, right? Like that's part of SEO. But I can't think of the last time that we created a strategy around locations where, the vast majority of them didn't succeed. So I think that it's important, again, that you have the right strategy, you go into it. And like anything, SEO changes over time, strategies change over time. So, constant cleanup, sometimes we're going in, we're making pages longer. Sometimes we're going in and we're getting rid of pages that we thought we needed. So it's very fluid and dynamic. And as long as you kind of adapt based on what you're seeing work, you'll be in good shape for the long run.
Yeah, well, it's a great topic. As you said, it's very meaty. And I guess the message here, and hopefully we've provided some education. And if you're a business who provides a service in multiple cities, but only has that one location, reach out to us and we'd love to help you strategize and rank in all of those cities because, man, you can really open up the floodgates, can't you?
There's a lot of traffic out there once you get out of your own city. So absolutely.
Great. All right. Thanks, Brandon.
Thanks, Mike.